Hi, I'm Suri with AV Prepping. Welcome back to our three-part series on emergency disaster kits. Today is our second video and we will be covering additional items you should consider to have in your emergency kit. So let's get started. The first item on the list for additional items to consider in your kit is prescription drugs and eyeglasses. I don't even think this should be an additional item. This should just be put in your emergency kit. If there's a disaster, you should always have extra medications, especially if you're diabetic or you are taking blood pressure medication. If the doctor asks why you want a 90-day supply, just tell them your concerns of, something happened, another coronavirus hitting, another lockdown. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. So as far as eyeglasses go, if you get glasses every year and your prescription really doesn't change, keep your glasses. Have them stored in one of your emergency kits so you have them just in case. Additionally, you might want to consider going down to the Dollar Tree and getting some extra reading glasses. These are always good to have. Someone will always need them. You'll be a hero to a neighbor if they need their reading glasses. Okay, the next item on the list is baby formula and diapers. If you have children, I'm sure you have a supply of diapers, but think about getting the next size up. If your baby is eating breast milk, you'll be okay, but what happens if mommy runs dry and you need the formula? So have formula and have extra diapers on hand. We need to go a little bit further into this. So what are you going to do if you don't have power and you can't warm your baby's food or the formula? This is why stoves are very important to have. We're going to be going over the 4 stoves that we have at our household in our next video, because if you're a new parent, you're going to learn really quick that babies need their food to be warm. If you've been doing this and you have kids, you already know it's probably good to have something to warm your infant's food up with. Okay, so the next item, let's not forget about our furry 4-legged friends. If you have cats and dogs, you always should have extra food on hand. We personally keep 4 months worth of food on hand for our pets, and we're in the process of hopefully getting those stores up to a minimum of 6 months. And you have to have food for them. And don't forget, next on the list is important family documents, such as insurance policies, your driver's license, your passports. It'd be a really good idea to make pictures of these, put them on a disc. That way, if you're not sheltering in place and you need to leave, you have a small disc and you can retrieve these items. Our next item is going to be cash and change. So it's always a good idea to have some spare cash for emergency use hidden somewhere in your house. You don't necessarily have to have it in your emergency kit, but you should have it to where you can get to it in case you have to leave your house. And you want to have small denominations, 20s, 10s, 5s, singles, also some change in case you are on the road when you're evacuating out of your area. You need to stop. There's a machine where you can get a soda out of or some candy. It's always good to have change. So cash and change. Okay, our next item is emergency reference manuals. This can range anywhere from first aid to how to build an impromptu shelter and how to stay warm. Always good to have these on hand. You can pick some up on Amazon. You can go to the local Walmart and get reference material. On a side note, if you do not know CPR, it is a very good idea. Learn CPR. You just might save someone's life. Okay, our next item is a sleeping bag and extra blankets and clothing. So if you're in a super cold environment, you definitely want the extra blankets. You want a good sleeping bag. That's if you're sheltering in place. Always remember this. You want something to sleep on, you want something to sleep in, and you want something to sleep under. Keep that in mind. That's why we have the tarps in the plastic. You can sleep on them, you can sleep under them, and you can actually sleep in them if you do. As I just said about the sleeping bags, you want extra clothing. And again, if you're in a super cold environment, make sure you have extra warm clothing. Goes without saying. In addition to this, you want some really good footwear. Now, on a side note, if you are diabetic and you have any type of neuropathy, make sure you have extra socks and they are white. So if anything happens to your feet as you do your foot checks, you'll know if you have anything inside of your foot and you cannot feel. Okay, our next item is an item that you should have in your house regardless, and that is a fire extinguisher. This isn't so much for an evacuation situation, but it's always good to have a couple fire extinguishers. We have 3 at our house, strategically located, and you should at least have 1 in your kitchen or wherever you're cooking. Most people do, some people don't. They don't even think about it. But okay, the next item on the list is feminine hygiene products. Now, even if you're in a household full of men, your roommates, it's always good to have feminine hygiene products in your emergency kit, because if you get a really bad cut, they absorb blood great. Also, if there's a puncture wound or a bad nosebleed, this also can come in super handy to absorb blood. Okay, moving on. Our next item is a mess kit, paper plates, paper bowls, plastic utensils, disposable cups. This is in case you have your food, but you can't wash your dishes, i.e. you're using water out of your emergency supply. So it's always good to have disposable stuff on. Okay, our next item is a waterproof writing pad and some pencils. Now, I would suggest using mechanical pencils in case you have to use a lot of space up if you're doing a lot of writing. And the reason for the pencil and paper is if you're at home and you're using your emergency radio and they're giving information out, you'll want to write some of this stuff down. You know, you're not going to be able to remember everything, especially in a disaster situation. So if you're told you're in Group A and you need to get over to where Group B is, you know, you can write directions down. You can write down the street address of where you're going. So it's really, really important that you have waterproof paper and pencil. And they sell these at Walmart. You want them waterproof because if it starts raining, you're going to be able to still see what you wrote. Okay, last but not least is books and games to keep your mind busy or your children's minds busy. So we made it through the second video of what FEMA wants us to have, and it's very important that you have these items. Granted, it's not a whole lot of stuff, but for some people it probably is a lot and it might be overwhelming. But take the time, go to ready.org, you can download all this information and you can start making your checklist. Once you're done with your checklist, then you can start building on it. That's the purpose of this channel. We take steps. It's never too late to start being prepared. Better to have and not need than to need and not have. So in the next video, we'll go a little bit further into depth on the stoves we have in our house, our first aid kits, and we'll start touching on the reason we prep.